Hello, Philly. Hello, everybody. I want to talk a little bit about lunging today, about equipment that you can use, and just some basic lunging techniques that you can do to introduce your horse or reintroduce your horse to lunging in an open space. Ideally, I like to introduce the horses to the groundwork in the open space in the round pen, but I know that a lot of you guys don't have that, so I'm going to just show you some ways on how you can get started and show your horse how all of this works. And so I'm going to get started with equipment a little bit. Here's a pad that I like to use that goes underneath the actual saddle pad. And there are a lot of different things that you can use, but just to say this is an open cell, really squishy, nice, soft pad that goes right on top of her back. You know, I sort of like to let it warm up a little bit. It's one of those pads that molds to the horse's shape once you have it on it, but if you don't have it, you can also just use a regular saddle pad and then put another one on top. And, you know, you can either do, if let's say this is the regular saddle pad, you can take the second one and put it on like this. So that just you protect the spine as well as you can. And if you know, you don't have that and you have find one of these, then you just put the saddle pad on just regularly like this. And then I'm going to grab my surcingle here. The surcingle is one of those tricky things. There are a lot of surcingles out there that are not really great for the horse, basically because most of their padding is very thick and angular right here where it goes over on the side of the spine. And if you put the girth, one of those lunge line surcingles, over your forearm, you can literally feel how it feels like a vice. It squeezes from the weight of the girth and the leather down and around onto the spine of the horse, and it's really not a good thing. So better to invest in something that has very sort of nice, soft, but very minimal padding, and then you just use the padding that I just showed you with the saddle pads up here to make sure that the horse is comfortable. Okay, so I will put links in the description of the video, and you can have a look at where I like to buy things and what kinds of things I like to use. So it goes on, I want to say, if you have a horse with high withers, not right on top of the highest point of the withers, but kind of where it curves down a little bit towards the more bigger curve of the back. And then, you know, you're gonna reach over underneath. I always point out, let's face into the direction of the horse's head when you tack up and when you reach for the girth, because in case something happens, the horse might get scared or spook and swing his hind end around, or God forbid, kick. You don't want to get kicked in the head. I at least would rather get kicked in the butt if I have to at all. Anyway, so here's the same rule as I talk about when I teach or when I show people how to tack up a saddle. Little easy does it, right? So one hole at a time. We never want to put too much pressure right on the horse's back right off the bat. So this is really, really comfortable. See, I can put almost my whole hand here, and just so that it doesn't slide off. What is attached to this surcingle is our side reins, and I'll go over those a little bit later when we put them on. For now, just suffice to say that I have them hooked into a length that once I clip it on to the horse's bit right about here. Thank you for demonstrating that so nicely. And I'm going to step in front so you can actually see what I'm talking about. You want to have the length so that when the side reins go horizontal to the ground, that the horse's front part of the nose will be slightly in front or right at the vertical angle, right? And you can't see it right now, but when I put it on later, you will see. And so I'm going to clip these things on. One is hooked into the lowest ring of the surcingle, and one is right here on the highest. And then I also have another piece of equipment here. This could be like an old stirrup leather or a belt that you don't use anymore, and I use this once we put the bridle on to secure the reins, and you'll see how that works in a moment. So much for this. I want to just quickly talk about the lunge line that I like to use. I like to use something that's a little heavier not these really flimsy, thin little cotton straps. This one is a weighted long line. Monty Roberts makes a nice one, but there are lots of different options for weighted, long lines or lunge lines. And so next step, we're going to put the bridle on. Good girl. And again, as you might find yourself, either you might be inside, but I'm outside here. Always think that you want to loop the reins over your horse's back first. Then you're going to take the halter off. The halter goes right straight over my right lower arm, as does the lead rope. Then I'm going to put all the vertical straps of the bridle that are below the brow band in one hand, in my right hand. Put it in front of her nose, and then cup that nice the bit into her mouth. Pull up the brow piece or the crown here. Then I can get rid of the halter. All these different things. I know that you know how to do all of this, possibly, but maybe not. So I'm just going to do this real quick here so that in case you don't, you can have a refresher. So I'm going to put the cabesson on nicely so that it sits, comfortably right across the nose bridge around the middle part here, not too low. Then I like to have the nose band on a little bit, so it secures the bit in her mouth, not to shut the mouth really and crank it shut, but just so that there's something that holds the bit in a little bit more safely and securely. And I like to pull the buckle up. Once you have all that done, then you're going to go. And what do we do first? Yes, this thing first here. So then here's the stirrup leather. It goes through the reins once. I don't know if you can see that, but this is how I like to loop it in. Then I cut this thing short so that it's not too dangly. And then the reins down here get twisted underneath the horse's throat area. And then I loop the throat ledge through here, this little thing with chin strap or throat strap, and secure all of this so that the reins, when the horse is on the lunge line, this rein part doesn't fall over her head in case she stretches forward, downward when the side reins are not on yet, and that none of this gets caught anywhere or gets tangled when we're in motion. And then last but not least, we're going to put the lunge line on. Let that unfold here nicely. Clip it onto the ring of the bit, and it goes underneath the rein here, as you can see. The rein goes on top, and then later on when we put on the side reins, and I'm just going to show this to you now since we're in a good spot, the side reins go underneath the rein and above the clip of the lunge line. So they will go right there, right? So I don't know if you can see that, but that's how it goes. And then I'll put it back here. And so much for getting dressed up for lunging. And I'll see you in a little bit in the arena. So now that we're nicely dressed for the occasion, I'm going to put Philly onto a small lunge circle here in the middle of the arena. And the way I do that, I always like to, communicate to the horses with their own cues in terms of their body language and the way they like to use their eyes. And eyes on eyes always mean between horses or among horses, stop or go away. So I'm going to, as I'm standing right here in the shoulder where most horses are most comfortable with the person, this is sort of your neutral space, I'm going to step away into the driving zone, which is behind her shoulder, closer towards her haunches and away. I'm going to snap my eyes onto her eyes. I'm going to let my coils out by opening my hand. The coils are neatly just coiled up so that they will easily just fall out of my hand as she's going to go away from me, and I'm going to distance myself a little bit from her. And then I'm going to use this whip. This lunge whip is about, it depends on what you like. I like the shorter ones. They're about 4 feet high, and they're lightweight with a nice long tail on them, you know, but whatever you like. So I'm going to I will put my whip behind me before I do this. Breakaway, I call it the breakaway, but when we're together here, it's sort of that nice, comfortable spot for all of us. So I'm going to go snap my eyes on hers, let the coils out of my hand, and then I'm going to sweep the whip up and towards her haunches. And you might not be able to see that, but I'm going to do it again. I'm going to just gently point it in direction of her haunches, and I walk with her. And all I want to do right now is for her to just walk gently away with me. And this is, you know, a little bit different than what you might see in the more classical sense of lunging, where the person will stand in one spot, almost stationary, and the horse will, you know, go in a defined circular space around that person. I like to walk with the horses. It's easy, it's a little bit more fun for the horses to think that we're doing this together, rather than having one person stand and the other one doing all the work. And it allows me to go up and down and circle around the arena, and not having to be in one particular spot only, you know. So I think that's number one. It's nice for the horse to get comfortable with the space, and I use the center line in terms of just circling up and down, and I'm keeping her at like I said, a little bit of a smaller circle. And you know, it's not altogether 20 meters, it's maybe, I want to say 10, 12, so that I have a nice feeling and control over her. My body language says to her, we're going to keep moving a little bit up and down the center line. And when I talk about the center line, I mean that I'm sort of orienting myself. I'm staying close to the center line, and she's swiveling or circling around me. And that gives me already the first impression of how she's moving on any given day. You know, horses have a little bit of a different way of walking and moving, just like we people have. And I always like to know, you know, what is the form of the day of my horse on any given day of the week. And, you know, for an Andalusians are not known for their big strides in the walk. They're, you know, they have a little bit more of a conservative way of moving. And filly is, you know, in the beginning, especially sometimes a little bit on the stiff side, but no big deal. That's why we're doing it right now in this fairly long frame. And you can see I'm not, you know, putting the side reins on. This is as if this was a riding session, we would just be, you know, walking around the neighborhood or in the arena on the long rein. So the horse can become comfortable with, you know, her own muscles to get warmed up, tendons get stretched out. Come on, wake up a little bit. Yeah, so, and all the time I'm just going up and down the center line here a little bit. And, you know, you can see, I mean, usually I would say, you know, a good 5 minutes of walk in each direction is a nice idea in most cases. You know, that gives the joints a chance to get lubricated, and the synovial fluids get, you know, into all the different important parts of the bone structures of the horses and the joints. And that's always important. Okay, so I'm going to have her come to me, turning a little bit away from her, inviting her with my eyes. And those are all terms that at some point I will explain in a different video. I'm going to change directions here on this side. Just going to do the same thing. Let her move away from me, eyes on eyes. So, and we're just going to go for a little bit of little few walk circles here. I'm just going to give her just a tiny little bit of an encouragement so that she doesn't take things a little bit too leisurely. Yeah. She's like, what's the rush? There's no rush, really. But I do want her to have a chance to use herself in the most optimal way, even as we're just in the warm-up phase right now. So what I'm looking at is how much her hind legs are tracking up and how much, you know, she's either stepping into the footprints of her front feet or how much overstride she might have, you know. And at this point, I like, as you can see, I like to have a little bit more of a marching walk, and we're starting to just see a little bit, little bit more active attitude here. And that's exactly right for this part of where we're at right now. So, and as I said, you know, I'm giving you just a little bit of an idea here. I'm not going to do like a big 15-20 minute walk lunge here in front of the camera, but when you're by yourself, you know, take your time, especially if you have older horses. So they do have a tendency to take a little bit longer. And in the meantime, you know, always use this opportunity to school your eyes. I always say, you know, watch your horse, watch the back, watch the part that's behind the saddle pad, you know, behind left and right of the croup. You can see the muscles that are going up and down. Do they look like a big package of tense muscle fibers and there's not much movement, or do they look more like a little bit of a, you know, gelatin type, like a pudding type consistency underneath the coat? That usually means that there's a nice supple movement, expanding and contracting of muscles and it going on underneath. You know, those are things to watch for. Then also you can look at the way the neck is sort of either stretching forward, downward, as you can see with Philly. She knows this. She does a nice job of it. You know, some horses do not do that. Some horses have a much higher headset in the beginning, also depending on their temperament and what else is going on. But, you know, this is the time right now to check into all of these different variants so that you have a good feeling for, you know, who your horse is at any given day. There you go. So, and I'm going to invite her to come to me one more time, and we're going to put the side reins on. Good girl. Come here. Come on. Good girlie. So, yeah. So then now I'm going to switch again. Switch and put the buckle underneath the reins here again. Like I said before, I'm going to put the side reins on, and these are already the right length for her because we use them. I do this usually once a week with the horses that I have in training, that they do some kind of form of groundwork. And as you can see, perhaps, or you might be able to see it in a moment when she's moving, and I'm going to do that same breakaway again, eyes on eyes, letting her move away from me, a little bit of an up swipe of the tail end of my whip, walk. So, and I like to teach my horses, my client horses, the voice commands that are sort of the traditional way of teaching horses what to do when. And for right now, I just want her to walk. I don't want her to, you know, just go right straight trot off without me saying anything. And then what I do is I always preface every command with the word "and." So I give the horse a chance to know that something is going to change in 1 or 2 steps. And the order of, you know, voice command, clucking, and whip, that's another thing maybe it might be interesting to talk about. It's the voice command, I will say and then whatever the gait should be, trot, walk, canter, and then the cluck. I'm not going to do it right now, but I will show you in a moment. And then, you know, a little bit of an encouragement with the whip if needed. So it's like that, voice, cluck, whip. Good girl. So, and then I'm going to swipe up my whip a little bit towards her haunches and say, and trot. And get into this really nice, slow, measured, working trot with her. And it's the same idea as what I was talking about earlier when I was saying how to watch and how to school your eyes. You know, look at your horses. Trot. What kind of trot does she or he have on any given day? Is it stiff? Is it loose? Is it hobbly? Is it just a sign of, you know, needing some more time to warm up? You know, you just never know. And the important part is really not to rush your horse. You know, never really rush them. Yes, activate when it's time, but, you know, on different days, it takes different times or different amounts of time to warm a horse up. And so that you always want to think that the more forward trot or the more forward walk develops out of the horse's wishfulness, out of the horse's motivation, and out of the horse's readiness, physical readiness to be able to, propel him or herself forward with ease. While I give more or less the same kind of input and say, with my body language, with my eyes, with a little bit of a rhythmic swiping up towards her haunches with my whip. There you go, got a little bit, I gave it just a little bit bigger swipe there just to see, but no rushing, no hurry all the time. I'm just gonna say, hey, look, what can we do here together? And this is the most important part, really. The trot will become better the longer you let the horse trot and find his or her own rhythm, working rhythm. And when you think about it, a good working trot is always defined by, the trot from which a horse can be collected or from which the strides can be lengthened, at ease, with ease. And at the same time, the whole dressage and, all these different ideas of how the horse should trot or move in any gait really comes from, at least in the European area, from a military usage perspective. And the working trot is defined in one sense by how long can a horse trot with ease without getting tired, in a measured way, but in a way that's sustainable, that, takes him and or her and the rider to the desired destination without wearing the horse out, unduly. And that in itself is one of those things, you have to always think, working trot is something that when you ride it correctly, you should be thinking, oh, it feels like my horse could do this for the next 10 minutes, 15 minutes without getting tired and without, being too much overtaxed. And that's kind of what you're seeing here. You're seeing how she's just, trotting kind of in a measured way. And then I'm going to say, that's fine. And walk, good girl. So, and you may want to do this a couple times. Sometimes I like to do some transitions. We'll just do that here for a moment here and trot. Just give a little bit of a, let's say 1 round of trot. And then we go from that into a few steps of walk just to see, and walk, and have a measure of, walk, wait for me, and have a way to see if the horse is, tuned into you without anxiety and without stress. And then I'm going to go back into trot and trot. So, and as I said, you're going to go from voice command to clucking and then a little bit of whip. If that's what you like to do, if you want to stay and stick to that type of regimen with me. And then I'm just going to go and walk. Good girl. When I give the down transition command, I try to lower my voice a little bit, but those are all like, the finer tunes of everything. You can do it however you like. Horses get conditioned to repetitive things that we ask of them and that we either reward with positive or negative consequences. Hopefully positive more than negative. I think of negative consequences more of setting a boundary and saying, hey, this is not quite working for me. And positive, always thinking, how can I find other ways of saying yes to my horse? I'm going to do it one more time and trot. So, good. And walk. And walk. Good. So, walk on. So, good girl. So, and then I'm going to bring her to a halt. And ho, good. And I use the line just in the most, conservative way with a little bit of a nudge sometimes, but I don't ever really want to rip on the horse to slow them down. And we're going to change directions here. I'm going to do a little bit of the same thing to the other side. Good girl. So let her find her her groove again to this side. And again, you always have to remember that the horse's natural unevenness plays a big part in how they feel, even on the lunge line. So to this side, this is the side, walk, 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 wait for me. This is the side that is by nature, a little bit longer. The right side, the horse is a little bit curved to the left. And walk, good girl. And that is sort of one of those things that, you always have to consider when you're riding too. I'll go into that more in my riding videos. But so we're going to go into a little bit of trot again, and trot. Up, come, good girl. So, and when she's just trotting in this working trot that I was talking about earlier, you just want to watch for regularity of rhythm, relaxation. I'm trying to hold my lunge line in a fairly straight line to her mouth so that it's not, looping or dragging on the ground. And I keep my eyes on her eyes. I position myself sort of loosely in relationship to her shoulder, closer to her shoulder axis. And then my whip points when there's nothing else going on, towards her tail. And I just let her find that nice little groove here. And over time, the tracking up will get better. But in the beginning, most horses don't really track up that perfectly unless they're really young or extremely well bred. And their natural gaits have, that ability to overstride easily. But with the older horses like these, and with horses that have a little bit of an age to consider, I always think, easy does it. The activity in the hind end will come again with time, with repetition. And then I'm going to do some walk trot transitions here again. Walk, good girl. So, and trot. So, good girl. So, very good. And walk. Good girl. So, and trot. Good girl. So, and I make a point of rewarding the horses with my eyes a little bit too. If I keep my eyes on her eyes, that means keep going. But if I glide my eyes and walk away from her eyes and over her neck towards her withers, that's a release of pressure or relief of pressure for the horse. And it acts almost as if it's as if you're stroking the horse over the neck with your hand, and it's a reward, anything that you can do to release the pressure. And then I'm in the up transition. I'm going to snap back on together with my voice command and trot, little cluck. There you go, super. So, and then I might add a little bit of canter to the mix. I'm just going to try and stay very calm with it and just ask her very quietly to come and go into the canter. And I like to preface it with the German word pass auf. I always say pass auf to the horses first. It's a kind of an indicator that something's going to change in a moment. You can find your own words. But let's see how that works here. And pass auf and canter. Come. So it's good. So it's good. So, and instead of the clucking for the canter up transition, I kiss to the horses. So this is also a pretty universal signal. And it serves the horses well to be tied into and trot into a communication system that is universally sort of recognized. And you can see how the canter will, amp her up a little bit. I don't want that necessarily. So trot. So when she gets amped up like that, I'm going to bring her back down, and you see how I'm closing in the circle, making the circle smaller. And I bring her back to a walk. And this is something that is very different than what I see when I watch other people lunge. A lot of people take the lunging sessions as a way of getting sort of the yahoos out of their horses. And, on the one hand, I get that. On the other hand, and walk. Over time, you condition your horses to thinking that, coming out on the lunge line is a place to race and to buck. And I think that's not helpful. It's sort of almost an anxiety-fed type of behavior that I like to avoid at all, because I don't think a horse should ever just, run and buck and feel like they can just take off whenever they feel like it. Unless they're out in the open, and you say, okay, here's your big arena, run around a little bit, or in the pasture. But when there's working equipment on them, I would say, excuse me, I would say very rarely can I see a reason for why that might be effective, right? So I'm going to do this again, gently asking her to go into the trot and then into the canter and trot. And the trot too, if you can, no, wait for me. If you notice that your horse wants to take off, make the circle smaller, just like I do right now here. Make it smaller, because it's harder for them to go fast. They have to balance themselves on this much smaller circular shape. And I like that. I like to just say, hey, I'm going to, control your speed. I'm the leader in this pair of two, in this little herd of two. And when she becomes a little bit more regular in the trot again, I'll let the circle be a little bit bigger. And then we're going to go back into the next gait. I'm not going to say the word because she's going to hear it otherwise until I'm ready. So, and pass auf. And canter. So, good. Now she got into a little bit of a cross canter there, so I don't want that. And trot. And trot. There you go. So she's self-corrected. Once she's in the canter, I'm going to let her have a much bigger circle, because I think that is much more healthy for the limbs, for the bones. And I'm going to let her have a little bit of a canter. Why not, She can canter for a couple rounds or so or longer, but it has to be somewhat civilized. Not to say that a little buck or a little bit of a, expressive move is completely, not allowed. But so there's the trot, which is kind of nice, and I'm going to just let her walk. And it's kind of hard for her right now to know exactly what I want, because usually I don't talk while I lunge that much. So it's quiet for the most part of the time when I'm lunging, and then I give the voice commands, and that gives the horse a much better sense of what I want at what time. And so you have to forgive this a little bit, and we will change directions one more time. Come here, good girl. Yeah. So, very good. Very good girl. We'll do that to the other side a little bit. But, that is in general sort of the idea of walk, trot, and canter, a little bit of everything, lots of transitions. When the horse cross canters, meaning that the inside pair of legs doesn't come forward at the same time when they strike off into the canter. But there's just a disconnect between all the pairs of legs, and you'll see it. The horse looks disunited. Just bring the horse back to the trot for a moment, maybe on a smaller circle if you can, and start. If you have a horse that cross canters repeatedly, start the canter from the smaller circle. It will allow the horse to balance him or herself a little bit better. And they do have to take up the weight on the outside hind leg to get into the correct canter lead. And on the smaller circle, the chances are greater for that to happen. So we're going to go into a little bit of trot again. And trot. Come. Trot. Good girl. Wait a minute. Nicht so schnell. So yes, I do have a tendency sometimes to speak German with them. But there's a nice little snort. And so I'm going to let her go up the next gate now. And pass off. And canter. Go. Yep. There you go. It's a little bit faster than I wanted to, but that's okay. I'm going to let her out on a bigger circle like that. Yep. Good girl. Maybe 1 or 2 rounds, maybe 3. Doesn't have to be very long. Super. Good girl. And trot. So make the smaller circle a little bit. Good. And walk. So this is what I meant to say earlier, is rather than, letting your horse race around in the canter for rounds and rounds and rounds, bring them into a trot, into a smaller circle, and bring them back to a walk transition. for a moment. You know, let them walk a little bit, because it will calm the horse down. The adrenaline will settle a little bit, and hopefully not get to a point where the whole brain is just saturated with stress hormones. And walk, good girl. Again, so she's starting to guess what I want, because I do a whole lot more talking than I usually do. So we'll do this one more time. And trot. I'll show you, do it from the smaller circle here. So, und pass auf. Canter. So, good girl. And then I let her out onto the bigger circle right away. So, super nice. Very, very nice. So, and she's stretching nicely now. You can see how she's looking for the contact. My lunge line has a loose contact with her too. And trot. So, it's good. And walk. So, very nice. So, you know, and that is pretty much the gist of it for just basic lunging. You know, I always say you know, you can either take your horse out and just spin him around for a little while, or you can actually, you know, take the time, watch the video all the way to the end, and just really study, you know, what happens to the horse. What can you do for the horse to make it a better experience, a less hazardous experience, and a really nice sort of a routine that folds right into your riding routine, into your workouts, where the horse stretches and has a little bit of contact and uses him or herself correctly. And you know, this is such a nice breakup of, you know, your weekly routine. The horse is appreciated. And so I'm going to bring her to a halt. Oh, good girl. And I will take off the side reins now. So, and then we will have a little bit of a cool down walk, and so that she can stretch. And then that will be it for today, huh? Good girl. Hope this was helpful to you, and give it a try and enjoy. Good girl, my filly. Good girl.